Alrighty, guys. Welcome to our presentation on the Israel civilization. And throughout our presentation, we'll be presenting on the foundation of the Jewish religion, the different core beliefs that they have, and the current world events affecting them today. So I'll now be turning it over to Daniel. Go ahead and whenever you're ready, Daniel.
All right, and what's helpful to understand the Jewish religion is to get some context for how their civilization has evolved throughout history. And when discussing the evolution of the Jewish civilization, there's sort of two different sources that can be consulted: modern archaeology and the Hebrew Bible. Modern archaeology explains that the Jewish civilization came out of Canaan. There, a people and a culture developed a religion focused on the worship of a god known as Yahweh. As time progressed, this group of people has been geographically dispersed. The Hebrew biblical tradition holds that the Jewish people sprang from Canaan through the family of Abraham. Jacob, Abraham's grandson, migrated his family, the 12 tribes, to Egypt, where they were eventually enslaved. And then a prophet named Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, and they were able to reclaim Canaan. And with the help of a prophet named Samuel, the Jewish civilization transitioned from biblical judges to a monarchy, and after that period of monarchy, the kingdom was split into the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. And after their exile to Babylon during the late 580s BCE, the Jews were granted permission by Cyrus the Great to return to Palestine. And an important event that has affected the Jewish civilization is the Holocaust. And the Holocaust was the state-sponsored genocide and persecution of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. Nazi Germany had risen to power on centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe. In the Nuremberg race laws, Jews were racially classified as non-Aryan because the regime viewed them as inferior and as posing a threat to the German racial community. Along with Jews, other groups such as communists, socialists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and homosexuals were also persecuted. And the Holocaust ended with the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps by the Allied forces from 1944 to 1945. What are the political, economical, and social structure of the Jewish civilization? So at a general level, in terms of religious governance, there is no single body that governs the religious leadership of the Jewish civilization. Individual synagogues are led instead by a spiritual leader called a rabbi. And many Jewish federations and communities are represented throughout North America by the umbrella organization Jewish Federations of North America, or JIFNA. And when we talk about the state of Israel defines itself as a Jewish and democratic state with a parliamentary democracy and universal suffrage. Their economy is a market system. UN's Human Development Index ranks it as very highly developed. They have sectors in agriculture, financial services, high technology, energy, industrial manufacturing, and tourism. Another important thing fundamental to Jewish civilization is Zionism. It's a Jewish nationalist movement that grew in response to anti-Semitic views in Europe that held that Jews could never fully assimilate into their society. The movement became political in the late 1890s with the first Zionist Congress led by an Austrian journalist named Theodor Herzl. And at the convention, the movement outlined their goal to create a home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The Zionism movement gained a lot of traction following their widespread persecution during World War II. And in response to growing conflict between Arabs and Zionists, the problem of a Jewish state was presented to the United Nations. And on May 14th, 1948, Palestine was partitioned into an Arab and a Jewish state. And this plays into the many conflicts we see with the Jewish civilization and the events affecting them in the current world today.
All right, I'll now be turning the time over to Keslee. Go ahead and take it away.
So the problem with the Jewish people coming back to the land of Canaan is that a local people already live there, the Palestinians. So since about 1890, the Jews and Palestinians have been squabbling and even warring over the land of Canaan, which is now referred to as the State of Israel. Some of the important events in this century-long conflict between the two culturally different people include the Balfour Declaration in 1922, when British declared the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. The two-state partition, one for the Jews and one for the Palestinians, in 1948 led to the War of Independence for the Jews, or as the Palestinians call it, the catastrophe. The Jews dominated Israel until 1967 when the Six-Day War happened. Now the Palestinians primarily occupy the West Bank and the Gaza, while Jews occupy the rest. The State of Israel holds religious and cultural importance and sacredness to both groups of people, yet they are also fighting over important resources like water. Despite the peaceful attempts of the U.S. and the United Nations in 2000 and 2017, the conflict is still unresolved. In fact, the U.S. is quite involved with the State of Israel. 42 of the 83 times the United States has used their veto in the United Nations Security Council, it has been to provide political support to the State of Israel. The U.S. also contributes money and other aid to the State of Israel, as seen in the graph. One importance between the U.S. and the State of Israel was in December 2017, when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. One last thing to note is that the State of Israel is considering going to war with Iran. At a recent summit in Warsaw, State of Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu unsuccessfully talked to other countries about allying against Iran. Time will have to show if all of Netanyahu's talk will go anywhere.
Thank you, Keslee. So I'll now be moving to my portion of the presentation. So what are the core beliefs of Judaism? So the main teachings of Judaism is about God, and that there's only one God. Only God created the universe, and only He controls it. Judaism also teaches that God is a spiritual and not physical. Jews believe that God is only one, unity. He is one whole, complete being. So what are the different branches of Judaism? So there are two different branches of Judaism, and that is known as the Orthodox and Hasidic. So the Orthodox Judaism is not a unified movement with a single governing body, but many different movements adhering to common principles. All the Orthodox movements are very similar in their observance and beliefs, differing only in the details that are emphasized. They also differ in their attitudes towards modern culture and the State of Israel. They all share one key feature in dedication to the Torah, both written and oral. So Hasidic Judaism is a spiritual revelist movement that emerged in Eastern Europe in the 18th century. Followers of Hasidic Judaism drew heavily on the Jewish mystical tradition in seeking a direct experience of God through ecstatic power and prayer and other rituals conducted under the spiritual direction of a rabbi. At the movement's height in the 19th century, it is estimated that only roughly half of the Eastern Jews were Hasidic. The movement was declined by the Holocaust, but dozens of Hasidic sects or courts exist today, mostly in the New York metropolitan area. So I got the privilege of going to a Jewish temple or church, and I got the privilege to interview the head leader of the church. So I'll now be going to my interview that I had with him. So enjoy this portion of the presentation.
Is Hanukkah first? The word Hanuk is what it comes from. Hanukkah is the feast of dedication. A group of Hasidic Jewish people who are very dedicated people decided to fight against their culture because their religion was being persecuted. And that's why it's called Hanukkah, because they were rededicating the temple after they beat the Greek forces and were able to restore the temple for holy purpose.
Is there like a specific way you guys prepare kosher? Is it a specific animal? Like what is kosher?
Kosher means it means clean. So we're talking about foods that God said is clean. So anything in His Word that says is clean. Now, we are not rabbinical. So we don't go through the process of deciding what ways of preparation are clean. We simply are biblical and say that what if the Bible says it's clean to eat, we can eat it. It's letting the Bible inform us on what food is versus what my own will is. It has to do with obedience. It's not salvation, of course, but it deals with how much I want to obey and get closer to God.
and of course, Yeshua is the living tabernacle. He's the living Torah and the living tabernacle. So what we have here is like the bronze altar. This is the bronze or the brazen altar. This is where the sacrifices would be. They would be slaughtered outside, and actually they would be burned. This was where the burnt offerings would take place. Okay. And this was a daily thing. All right. They would daily do. See, now this is the holy place. Okay. And the holy place, okay, had the menorah, which is what this is a representation of, and it's seven lampstand, okay? And it was like one in the middle, and then there was 3 that would protrude out of each end, okay? So actually, I kind of point out how Yeshua is the light of the world. They actually, there's connection in the scriptures, or the scripture can verify that Yeshua was most likely born at the time of Hanukkah.
So that is the end of my interview, and this comes to the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about the Israel civilization, and here are our sources. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Okay, recording stopped.
You regretting trying to come by your bedroom?
It says it's still recording.
No, I'm very happy about it.